Hello,
Hello.
everybody.
Hello.
All right, so there we go with that. So, welcome to the Mikestand, everybody. Today is Wednesday, so that means it's Hump Day. Um, so we're going to be getting over the hump here, of course. Let's see. Of course, before we talk about what's on tap for tonight, Rick, how's your week going?
Pretty good. So I was just telling you just before we came on air, I got an interview for tomorrow. I had a phone interview today. Impressed them enough to say, "Hey, can you come in tomorrow for an in-person interview?" And I'm like, "Sure." So
And what
yeah,
kind of place is it again?
it's called Goodness Me Natural Food Store,
Oh, okay.
and it's a cash as a cashier. So you know,
Hmm. All right.
don't mind me. I'm just sharing this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, yeah, and as always, guys, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people here, that be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about tonight grabs your all's attention, feel free to um, comment and or ask questions. We will try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So, let's see now. So, also, let's see. All right, let's see. I'm gonna pass along to Rick here to let him do his intro. Talk about it, promote anything. Talk about share any links. Talk about talk about anything he wants to talk about. Then we'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. So Rick, go for it.
Oh, hey, everyone, just going to put in a link. If people want to be nice enough to go over and check out my channel if you haven't already. There is a link to one of the latest videos that I've done on my channel. So, yeah, check that out if possible, please, and thank you.
All right. Anything else? Any updates
Uh,
on any Canadian Shield or Snowdrift or anything like that?
uh, no, nothing for that at this time. With my interview, things could hopefully speed up in that regard, but it's hard to tell. that you know, I got a lot of things, possibly going on.
All right.
Well,
All
nothing
right.
well, going on, but not going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. All right. Anything more you'd like to share before we move on?
Not at this time.
All right. So hey, and there's Elk. There's Elk right there. Hey, Elk.
Hey, Elk.
Hey, Elk. Xena, our only true fictional savior. All right. So, anyway, here's what's on tap for tonight. Not as much article wise, but I'm going to talk about a couple of things. One of which, of course, for those of you who grew up watching Land of the Lost. Now, granted, apparently his passing happened a couple months back, but they just announced it like yesterday. Spencer Milligan, who played Rick Marshall for the first two seasons of Land of the Lost back in the '70s. He was the father, of course, to Holly and Will Marshall, who were portrayed by Holly Coleman or Kathy Coleman and Wesley Ure. He passed away at the age of 86 back on April 18th. So we're going to, of course, be looking at him a bit, look at his career a little bit. And granted, he may not have had any work in animated work, but he still was, part of one of the more popular Saturday morning shows back in the '70s. There with Land of the Lost, so that's part of the reason why we're going to be covering him. Also, got some updates in regards to Toonami for those of you who still watch Toonami, like myself. They got some programming notes that are coming through at least through July here, and apparently they are going to be expanding to 4 hours in July. So
Cool.
that's going to be interesting. Um,
Could that be just for the summer or not? But do you know?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a permanent thing. I just was looking up the information earlier,
Uh,
because
as
I know that some other programming issues are, like we'll get into all that when we talk about that, of course, and also the wrestling wrap up as well as this day in each history. So let's get this comment out of the way here. Let's see. And Rick, you might want to read this one because he's
yeah,
directed to you.
yeah, he's asked. We have a room in our condo for rent. Care to spend a year or more out west? In a lot of ways, I would. But right now, I think I'm in a good position. I tried it out west. Maybe sometime in the future, I might try it again. But at this time, uh, I I'm gonna stick in Ontario. And I actually have a job interview tomorrow. As I was saying a couple minutes before you got in the chat, I had a phone interview today, and it went well enough that they said, "Hey, can you come in for an in-person interview tomorrow?" And I said yes. And so tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern, I will be doing uh, an in-person interview at Goodness Me Natural Food something.
All right.
It's
So
like a
and then
grocery
Elk.
store, but natural foods.
Yeah. So he of course Elk is hoping that Goodnight Spoon will show up and make sense. All right. So anyways, with all that being said, and of course, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you haven't already, you guys can like and share the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to come in and engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to get to. We'll try to get to the. I'll try to answer. We'll try to answer the questions.
Answer any questions.
Right. Anyways, let's get into what the first thing we're going to talk about tonight was, as I was just mentioning, of course, for those who may remember who maybe grew up watching Land of the Lost back in the 70s, the guy who played the father, Rick Marshall, and there Spencer Milligan passed away back in April. They just apparently they just announced it like yesterday, though. It apparently was just but he passed away at the age of 86. So we're gonna be just taking a quick look at him and his, talk a little bit about, I don't know if any
His career.
Rick, have you watched Land of the Lost?
I'm pretty sure I've seen a few episodes. I never watched it consistently. It's something that I probably would like to watch at some point.
Well,
That
I'm sure Lorenzo is watching because he's
yeah, I was just gonna.
and creatures in the show.
Yeah, I was just gonna say about that because Lorenzo would say being a sleestack and all that, or and I'm claiming to be a sleestack. You know how it is. He's playing a part, which is good. Um, here on the internet. So
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I've noticed he hasn't been doing his show the last couple months.
yeah, I saw something in one of the DMs or somewhere that he hasn't been feeling too well the last couple weeks, or a couple weeks ago he said he wasn't doing the show because he wasn't feeling that week because he wasn't feeling too good. So I assume if he hasn't done it the last couple of weeks, it's the same reason.
Well, I've just noticed he hasn't been on much. I mean, he hasn't been doing his show, or really, he hasn't been around a whole lot. I think I last saw him a month ago.
Yeah.
Somebody else's chat, but anyways, and then Elk pointing out I liked Land of the Lost. Yeah, a lot of people did. I mean, it was kind of a cool show. I mean, some people may have found some of the special effects kind of corny. But
but you have to remember the time that it was done. Yeah, by today's standards, or even 10, maybe 20 years after it was out.
Yeah. Well, from what from some of the things, because I just recently subscribed, even though I've watched his stuff before. This guy who's kind of a classic TV enthusiast, David Sundstrom. I watched some of his stuff, and that's how I found out about it. I saw he posted a video, and apparently, of course, Kathy Coleman and Wesley Ure, who played his kids in the show, um, they remain close to him. So, anyways, so let's look over his profile here, at least to do the man honors, of course.
It's Wikipedia.
Yeah, Spencer James Milligan, born September 10th, 1937, passed away April 18th, 2024, was an American actor. He is best known for the role of Rick Marshall, the father of Will and Holly Marshall, on the first two seasons of the 1970s children's science fiction TV series, Nine Lost. Now, he left the show after the second season because over, I guess, rights issues and regarding the merchandise. He was taking a stance at the time that, he felt he needed to make, and that's when they replaced him with Ron Harper as Uncle Jack.
Yeah, and that went over well, which I guess, well, definitely bad for him. But obviously, something similar happened with the Dukes of Hazzard, with John Schneider and Tom Wopat. They were, getting up in arms with them not getting, merchandising stuff when they were making stuff to their likeness.
And in fact, what I was just talking about here, apparently they talk about it right here. Milligan left Land of the Lost after the second season due to a dispute with the producers of the show. Milligan wanted his share of any merchandising profits or royalties that the show generated. In a 2009 interview with the Associated Press, Milligan elaborated, "We had a difference of opinion. Let's put it this way. On using my face for stuff and paying me, lunchboxes, compasses, where they were selling them. And I thought it was only fair that everyone should get their fair share." Now, today, as and I know when Dave, the other guy, when he talked about it, if he made that argument today, there wouldn't really be an issue.
Yeah,
but for that time period, it was novel.
Yeah, because as I was alluding to with the Dukes of Hazzard, the same thing went down with John Schneider and Tom Wopat. But they were popular enough that when they did that, they walked off the set, they got fired or whatever, and they replaced them. It did not go over well with the fans, so they had to bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
So they made
for him, and one of the other things that was pointed out too was that when he left, it was kind of a downer for the cast because everybody liked Spencer. It's not that they didn't like Ron Harper, the guy who replaced him. It's just they didn't have. It was just said they didn't have the same chemistry.
Yeah, just like with the people that they replaced Bo and Luke with, John Schneider, Tom Wopat.
Yeah.
Now the question is, the thing that I'm wondering about, up in the starting thing there, it said it was a children's TV show. Was it children's? Was it on a children's time, or was it on an evening? What? I'm not sure what the time
was. When I was watching, it was already in syndication by the time I was watching it. But I think, from what I understand, when it was part of the Saturday morning lineup in the 70s, it would be like in the late part, like usually like 11. It was probably one of the last things that was shown.
Okay, so you said Saturday morning.
I'll put it this way. Okay, so if the Saturday morning block back then was from 7 in the morning to noon, right? That 5-hour block right there was your Saturday morning cartoon block or kids, right? So usually a show like Land of the Lost that was more live action would have been put on like maybe 11 or 11:30.
Yeah. Okay, I
11
get that.
or 11 if they also had like, let's say, like a teen show like American Bandstand come on usually right after that at 11:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, I get that. Like I was thinking it. Like I didn't realize that it came on Saturday mornings when it was first airing. I was thinking it might have aired
well, because
late.
it was produced by Sid and Marty Croft, the same
Yeah.
company that gave us shows like HR Puff and stuff, the Bugaloos,
Yeah.
um, those type of
Yeah.
shows, Lidsville, those shows, Sigmund and the Sea. But the thing
Yeah.
is, it was still a kid's show.
Yeah.
It was just a little
Yeah.
more serious.
Yeah.
They delved into a little more serious topics
Yeah.
than, let's say, the other shows did, right?
Well, that I guess
Still
that's
kids
sort of
there,
why
but they was
that's
just
sort of why I was thinking it might have been an evening show myself. I didn't realize because like Lost in Space, I don't think was a Saturday morning show either. It was an evening show. So that's why I thought when it says
yeah,
children's
but
show
you have to
for
remember
Paramount.
the 50s and 60s. They weren't putting a lot like they weren't putting things like The Simpsons or Futurama on TV at any hour, back
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the 60s.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I get that. But I'm just saying, like, you take a show like Land of Lost or Lost in Space, they're very similar shows, I would say. Um, for the goofiness, campiness, and all that. If Lost in Space was on at like I don't know, 8 o'clock at night on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, you would think Land of Lost would easily be able to be on at that time too.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I didn't know.
yeah, and it was on this, and then when it went into syndication, of course, it was a lot, and here in the state, I don't know how they did it up in how your TV's block programs up there, how they block
They were similar to yours.
there, but we here in the States, at least back when I was growing up, you'd have two cartoon blocks. You have a morning cartoon block that usually went from like 7 to 9, and then you had the afternoon block that went from 3 to 5. Sometimes they'd extend them, like sometimes they'd go as they'd start as early in the morning as 6:30, and then start as early in the afternoon as 2:30. Like, but
Yeah, that was about the same here. Like that sort of stuff was the same in Canada and the States. Because we're very similar countries. Yes, there are some major minor differences, but for that sort of thing, I think it's one of the things that's very similar.
Right. The idea was you have the morning block as the kids were getting up and getting ready for school. And they as they were like sitting there eating their breakfast, they'd have something to watch that was more kid friendly. And then in the afternoons, they'd have stuff they'd come home to watch as well.
Yeah, I get all that, but like my point was more, I didn't even realize it was a kid's show. I didn't even realize it was put in that kid block. Because I wouldn't have thought.
Because it was more for older kids. It was more for like.
I wouldn't have even thought it would have been put in a kid's block, but they did. I'm finding that out now, and I guess that's fine. It's just it's what I thought versus reality. What I thought was not reality.
All right. Anyways, continuing on with the article here, with the wiki article here. So the show replaced Milligan's character Rick Marshall with Rick's brother Jack Marshall, played by actor Ron Harper. Milligan did not return for the brief scene at the beginning of Aftershock, the first episode of the third season. This scene, which was also used in the opening credits of the third season, showed Rick Marshall being transported out of Land of the Lost. John Kubichin, who both wrote and produced the episode, played the role instead, wearing a wig resembling Milligan's hair and standing with his back to the camera. Yeah, I mean, if you watch the third season, they show the scene. It happened in the first episode, but they then used it in the opening sequence to kind of explain what happened. So Although Spencer Milligan made various guest starring roles on TV in the 1970s, his career slowed down in the 1980s. During the 1980s, Milligan lived in Malibu. He then relocated to the Dallas-Fort Worth metroplex area in the 1990s, where he taught acting at Adam Rourke's Film Actors Lab, where Lou Diamond Phillips studied. One of Milligan's students was actor Benton Jennings. Milligan eventually moved back to his family's home in Wisconsin. His last known televised acting performance was in 1987, where he appeared on General Hospital. In addition to teaching acting, Milligan directed local plays.
Oh,
And his
cool.
death here, Milligan died in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin on April 18, 2024 at the age of 86. His cause of death was not given. I think he more or less just left the whole Hollywood scene and just, you know,
Yeah.
and he was in the films like 1973 Sleeper, 1975's A Man from Clover Grove, and then The Photographer. Of course, his most famous role was as Rick Marshall in Land of the Lost, but he also had guest appearances in Gunsmoke. Had a couple of two different appearances in The Bionic Woman, Quincy M.E., Alice, the Police Squad, the television series before the movie came out. He guest starred in an episode on The Magical World of Disney, You Ruined My Life as a Detective, and then General Hospital.
7 episodes as
Yeah.
Ray Gibbons on that.
Yeah. So
A very short acting career, although it's only said partial, so maybe he had a bunch of other.
I mean, we could probably go to his IMDb and look up everything he did, but I don't think that's really overly necessary.
No, neither do I.
Yeah. So, anyways, with that, one thing I would like to do before we move on, of course, is in that he did pass away and stuff, as I sometimes do when we do cover people who have passed from this world to the next. I want to do a moment of silence, to show our condolences to him and his family. So, why don't we do that? We're going to just do a moment of silence to honor the late, great Spencer Milligan. Alrighty then. So with that being said, let's move on to our other thing that we're gonna. And a friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to come in to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So with that, let's move on to the next thing. All right, wrong thing there, Mikey. Toonami is next. For those who, of course, watch it like I do, the anime block on Saturday nights. Kind of go over what's going down in the next. All right, so here, as soon as I get to that part there, let's see now. All right, so over the next few weeks, of course, so currently the schedule as it stands right now is a 3.5 hour block on Toonami, starting off with an all times Eastern, of course. At midnight Eastern, My Adventures with Superman. Then Zom 100, Bucket List of the Dead on at 12:30 a.m. on Saturday night, Sunday morning technically, but 9:30. So 12 starting at 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. So 12:09, 12:09. It's My Adventures with Superman. Followed at 12:30, 9:30 with Zone 100 Bucket List of the Dead. At 1 a.m. / 10 p.m. One Piece, followed by Naruto Shippuden at 1:30 / 10:30. At 2 a.m. / 11 p.m. on Saturday, Dragon Ball Z Kai. Then at 11:30, or 2:30 Eastern, 11:30 Pacific, Ninja Kamui, which of course the dubbed episodes are still being aired at that time. And then at 3 a.m. / midnight Pacific, Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba. Now on July 6th, starting in July, they're going to be expanding the block, adding an extra episode of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, going from 3 to 4 a.m. Eastern, 12 to 1 Pacific. At that point, I believe that's when Zone 100 will be finishing its run, because and Zone 100 Bucket List of the Dead, that's one of the zombie animes I was telling you guys about a couple weeks ago on the Sunday show. On July 13th, they will go to having 2 episodes of One Piece, going from 12:30 / 9:30 for a full hour. 2 episodes, 12:30 and 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., 9:30, 10 o'clock on the Pacific Coast. Still having the 2 episodes of Demon. Then on July 20th, they'll extend the block to 3:45, as Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba will be airing a 45-minute season finale in rerun there.
Yeah.
And I hear somebody in the background there.
Yeah, just my cousin.
All right, and then coming up on July 27th, at the end, there'll be, I guess, My Adventures with Superman's marathon that will go for 5 hours, 12 to. Now I don't know if that will be permanent or what, but okay, maybe we can even find that out here by clicking this little tidbit here. Check out our July lineup and buckle up for a season 2 marathon of My Adventures with Superman. So it's 10 episodes, so it's probably, chances are, that's probably why they're doing it. They're doing so that's what's going. So I think that's all happening through the end of July. So maybe once July gets through, they'll probably have, whether
Another
or not
update?
they'll continue it or not. I know that Shippuden is down to its last episode, because Shippuden ran for 500 episodes. I think it was 491 this past Saturday. So they'll probably be winding down as well.
And hello, Cephalad?
Hello, Self Lad.
I'm not sure whether that's a different language that he's put there or not. Let's find out.
What, ASMR?
No, the word that he put in there.
Yeah. So with that,
he says Henry, and that is Hawaiian. What about Henry?
All right. So with that, so now that we've, of course, finished the finish the articles here, or what we're going to talk about here. I think I will move on to the wrestling wrap up here. Let's see. Of course, and people are still on social media. People are still talking about the passing of Sika Anaue, the father of Roman Reigns, and of course the WWE Hall of Famer. One half of the Wild Samoans legendary tag team who passed away yesterday. So many people have shared their condolences, including, of course, Natalia, who there's talk that she's already severing her social media ties as her contract is due to be up soon. There's quite a number of contracts in both WWE and AEW that are coming up, so we will be waiting to see what all is going down. As WWE, of course, is still continuing to prepare for Money in the Bank coming up with later this month. So, anyways, moving on now from that. Oh, actually, one other little tidbit too. So, Kevin Owens' son is apparently looking to get into the wrestling business. So that may be something to look forward to as well for those of you wrestling fans. Now, moving on to AEW news, as tonight's Dynamite, scheduled for tonight's Dynamite, ahead of Takagi's, ahead of this weekend's Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Shingo Takagi, who will be facing Bryan Danielson in a Owen Hart quarterfinal match at this weekend's Forbidden Door event, at this Sunday's Forbidden Door event. He'll be teaming with two of his Los Ingobernables de Japón faction members, Hiromu Takahashi and Titan, to take on three members of the Blackpool Combat Club of Claudio Castagnoli, IWGP World Heavyweight Champion Jon Moxley, who will be defending that title against Tetsuya Naito at Forbidden Door, and Ring of Honor Pure Champion Wheeler Yuta in a 6-man tag match.
And hello, Good Night Spoon.
Oh, Good Night Spoon here. Hey, Good Night Spoon.
I'm not sure whether I'd say you've been summoned, but definitely Elk is wondering about things, whether you're free or not. This is why you don't mess with Ouija boards, Rick. Okay, I have no idea what you're talking about.
All right. Let's see. In another men's quarterfinal match in the Owen Hart. Now, the winner of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament that's been held the last 3 years is the third straight year doing this. This year, they've even put a little bit more mustard on the dog, as it were. As the winners of this year, the men's and women's winners this year, winners of the men's and women's tournaments this year, will each be getting a title shot. Men will be getting a world title shot, and the women will be getting a world women's title shot. I believe at All In. In another quarterfinal match that will be happening tonight, Ray Fenix will be taking on Switchblade Jay White. In a 6-woman tag team match, two women who will be facing each other for the women's world title will be teaming up tonight. As Toni Storm, the AEW Women's World Champion, teams with her opponent Nina Shirakawa at Forbidden Door, and her protege Mariah May to take on the outcasts of Anna Jay, Harley Cameron, and Saraya. Kyle O'Reilly takes on Zack Sabre Jr. in a tune-up match for Sabre Jr. as he prepares for his matchup with Orange Cassidy at Forbidden Door. And then in another tag team match involving two people who will be facing each other this weekend, Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay, who will be battling for Swerve Strickland's AEW World Title, will be taking on the Gates of Agony of Bishop Khan and Toa Leona. So that's all we got, and I'll talk more about what's going down on this weekend's Forbidden Door pay-per-view on Sunday. I'll be talking more about that tomorrow night, about what the matches are there. All the matches are there. With that being said, let's go on to some NWA news. It's, of course, last night's Power tapings. Last night's episode of Power on the CW network. Last night was part 2 of their Crockett Cup series, as they had taped the Crockett Cup back on May 18th, but they're now showing them on last night's episode of Power. You saw 2 quarterfinal matches of the Crockett Cup tournament, as well as a match for the World Junior Heavyweight Championship. In the 2 Crockett Cup tournament matches, Knox and Murdoch, the number 2 seed, defeated the number 10 seed, the Looks at Kill, of Brian Idol and Natalia Markova. One of 2 intergender teams that were actually involved in the tournament this year. We'll get to the other one in a moment here. But Knox and Murdoch advanced to the semifinals to be taking on the Southern Six, who advanced last week. And the main event of the night saw, of course, Blunt Force Trauma, the current NWA World Tag Team Champions, and the number 1 seed in the Crockett Cup, defeating the other intergender tag team in this tournament, Judias and Maxie Impaler. Maxie Impaler being the woman here, calling herself the non-binary nightmare. Okay, so
that's a nightmare in itself.
Yeah. With Father James Mitchell in their corner, while Aaron Siemens was in the corner of Blunt Force Trauma. Blunt Force Trauma advanced to the semifinals to be taking on the former NWA United States Tag Team Champions, the Immortals, Kratos and Odinson. And then in between the 2 matches was the World Junior Heavyweight Championship match. Joe Alonzo defended against Jack Cartwheel and retained in that match. There we go with that. So we're all done with that now.
Goodness, allow me to explain. Because people, usually children or the superstitious, use Ouija boards to summon ghosts and demons to troll Zach Baggins. Well, I know about teenagers and that using troll and superstitious people or whatever using Ouija boards. I'm not sure whether I'd say they summon ghosts and demons, but they use it to try and talk to the dead or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But they usually end up without knowing it. Talk to a demon.
Yeah. But, all right. So with that being said, now I'm going to go ahead and move on to this day in each history. As today is Wednesday, June 26th, 2024. So we're going to take a look back at this day in each history. History! So first up, I'm going to head back 50 years ago today. As on this date, 50 years ago today, back in 1974, the Stephen Krantz production, The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, premiered in theaters on this date back in 1974. Was an adult animated anthology black comedy film directed by Robert Taylor as a sequel to Ralph Bakishi's Fritz the Cat, back in adapted from the comic strip by Robert Crumb. Neither of whom had any involvement in the making of the film. Only 2 people involved in the first film to work on the sequel were voice actor Skip Hinnant and producer Steve Krantz. So this Of course, this film probably was it gained some fame as being one of the probably as being the first film, the first animated film to get both an X and an R rating.
Oh wow.
In contrast to the first film receiving an X rating, the sequel got an R rating. Okay, being the first American animated film to do so, and cementing the Fritz films as the holders of the first animated films to receive both ratings. So they got an A. So, like the first film, The Nine Lives of Fritz the Cat focuses on Fritz, voiced by Hinnant, a fraudulent womanizer and leftist who is shown in this film to have married an ill-tempered woman named Gabrielle, with whom he shares an apartment room with their infant son. Unlike the first film, The Nine Lives of Fritz the Cat adopts a non-linear narrative and is presented as an anthology of loosely connected short stories connected as cannabis-induced fantasies, which occur as she berates Fritz. The stories depict him as a Nazi stormtrooper, a rich playboy, an astronaut heading to Mars, and in an alternate reality in which New Jersey has seceded from the United States as an entirely African American state. China and Russia, except for the wraparound segment, none of the film's storylines are based on Robert Crumb's comics, and he was not credited on this film. So that's basically 50 years ago today. The Nine Lives of Fritz the Cat, the first animated films to get both an X and an R rating, premiered in movie theaters. So let's see.
We got Evan Hotep in the house. It's been a long, long time since we saw Evan Hotep. Who's disturbing you from your slumber? It's either Goodnight Spoon or the parasocial audience, otherwise known as Elf.
Evan Hotep, is he somebody from your channel, Rick?
Well, he was. He disappeared from my channel like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago now.
Oh.
And then suddenly this guy Goodnight Spoon appeared a few months later.
Who the hell is that, Rick? I am not amused. All right, so anyways, as we of course continue on now with let's get ready to
Could
move
be
on.
Joshua, Goodnight Spoon, or it could be you.
With that, moving on to the next piece of niche history here. Moving on to 1984, 40 years ago today. On this date, 40 years ago today, the 20th issue of the first volume of New Mutants from Marvel went on sale on newsstands on this date back in 1984. It sold for 60 cents. You know, the page count was 32. Wow, 60 cents. 2 quarters and a dime to get a comic book. Wow. Now, granted, we've seen books that are even less than that, but as compared to today, that's still quite a deal, right?
Yeah. And I wasn't keeping track of all the months exactly. Goodnight Spoon. I just was throwing something out there. But I was gonna say to Goodnight Spoon, Elk is trying to contact Goodnight Spoon because he thinks he's going to be a better fit to come on do the thing tomorrow night with you. So you might need to get in contact with him to straighten him out.
Anyway, so the story was Badlands, written by Christopher S. Claremont, with art by Bill Sienkiewicz. Tom Ozakowski did the lettering, and Glynis Wayne did the coloring. So on this date, 40 years ago today, The 20th issue of the first volume of New Mutants went on sale on newsstands. As date 40 from Marvel Comics. Who's Goodnight Spoon? All right. So with that, now moving on ahead to 2004, which was just 20 years ago today. On this date in 2004, the anime Ohamaho Doremi Naisho, an OVA, a Toei Animation OVA, was released on this date in 2004. Now, for those of you who don't know, that's part of, here in the States, we know it as Magical Do Re Mi. It was a part of the Kids WB lineup for a year or two there. Ohamaho Do Re Mi translates as Magical Do Re Mi.
Do re mi fa so do.
Right. So, but
I know I messed it up, Anita.
But anyways, this Toei Animation OVA, original video animation, premiered on this date back in 2004. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show.
Okay, you want me to ask a question that only he could answer? Who is his mummy?
Yeah. So anyways, but before we head out, of course, as we're wrapping up here, and we got one more. He must have me blocked to like gate. All right. Yeah. So with that, though, before we head out, of course, Rick, would you like to do an outro? Promote anything? Talk about what's going on with you and all that. You know the shtick.
Yeah. Well, I'll just share the link to the video I shared earlier. And if anybody wants to, go check out my channel, check out this video, and if they like what they see, like, share, subscribe, all that wonderful stuff. So, yeah, I'm just going to keep it simple.
All right. So with that, as we close out here, we'll be back here tomorrow night, of course. I'll be going over the Indie Comic Showcase article from Bleeding Full, getting you guys caught up on some of the newer stuff that's coming out. Also, of course, and this Friday, of course, Apex Comics will be joining me as we continue our look at March of 1940 of comics that went on sale. This week we'll be focusing in on Marvel Comics, or back then known as Timely. We'll be looking at Marvel Mystery Comics number 7, I believe, and Daring Mystery Comics issue 1, volume 4. So with that, and before we leave, we have one more comment here. So I got a weird email from someone named JR, and it's about an escape room. What is this about, Rick?
It's about escaping from a room digitally.
Yeah. All right. So with that, I thank everyone for being here, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show. With that, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.
And you should answer it.